Today's scripture reading is Genesis chapter 12, verses 1 and 2, and John chapter 3 and verse 8. Now the Lord said to Abraham, "Go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you. I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great so that you will be a blessing. The wind blows where it chooses, and you hear the sound of it, but you do not know where it comes from or where it goes. So it is with everyone who is born in the Spirit." The word of God for the people of God.
All right. Well, it is really a privilege, and it's lovely to be with y'all. I noticed in the men's restroom that they had the lineup for the summer. So I'm like guest speaker number 3, I think, out of a series. But I do get to be followed by baseball, so that's pretty cool. There's baseball this afternoon, apparently, with peanuts and hot dogs, so can't get better than that. I have loved drawing near to your congregation primarily through Stephanie. Stephanie has been one of my constant companions as I've been doing this new thing that I'm going to tell you about. We found each other kind of as shared explorers. I don't even remember how we met. Oh, through Larry, at the seminary, that's right. And when you do a new thing, one of the most important things that you need in your life is allies and people to start walking with you, because walking out into a new thing can feel very lonely and very strange. So thank you, Stephanie. It's been really great. I just want to add one Bible reading to the Genesis reading that was offered. And by the way, do you all know that Genesis passage, Genesis 12, 1 and 2? Because God is speaking to Abraham and Sarah and saying, "Go to the land I will show you. Go to the land I will show you." Not the one you're planning for, not the one you already know, not the one you trained for. Understand? So we'll get back to that. And then this one from the Gospel of John, also a very well-known passage, John 3, verse 8. "The wind blows where it chooses, and you hear the sound of it, but you do not know where it comes from or where it goes. So it is with everyone who is born of the Spirit." Some of you may get an echo from that biblical text. I forget who the poet is, it's Longfellow or one of those. "Who can see the wind? Neither you nor I. But when we see clouds? Then the wind is passing through. Anyway, you can't see it, but you feel it. And that's the way of anyone who is born in the Spirit." So I would like to begin exploring our Genesis passage by using a song that we're going to sing during the offertory. And so I just want to talk about this song a little bit, and I'm actually going to have us try singing a few phrases as well. This is a song that I became familiar with. I was leading a retreat in Chicago a couple of weeks ago, and it was a multi-faith retreat, and I really wanted to have a good, wholehearted Jewish song, a song from the Jewish tradition, and I just didn't know him very well, but one of my co-facilitators is a Jewish woman who I've worked with for years, and she suggested this one, and it's just a beautiful, great song and connects with one of my favorite passages, Genesis 12. The song is called Lachi Lach, and I'll tell you about the meaning of the Hebrew, but it's a flowing song from the songwriter Debbie Friedman, and it's been used in Jewish funerals and memorial services often, but also in other soulful settings of sending or of venturing out. And so you understand, go to the land that I will show you. Go to the land. You can see how that would be a lovely memorial or funeral text, but also for new ventures and for sending. So in this song, we will be singing the Hebrew phrases Lachi Lach and Lech Lachah. So let's just try saying those. So Lachi Lach, and Lech Lachah. Some of you have the German ear. I can hear that. Very good. So these phrases actually both mean to take yourself or to go forth. And so, take yourself to the land that I will show you. Go forth to the land that I will show you. But the songwriter, Debbie Friedman, begins with something that is unexpected to the Jewish ear, to the Hebrew ear. And that is, she begins with the feminine construction, lahi lach. So we said lahi lach and we said lech lekah. She begins with lahi lach. Well, that's not what you would expect to hear if you were reading that Genesis 12 passage in Hebrew. In Genesis 12, the ordinary reading would be lech lekah, which is a masculine form, but she uses the feminine form. And so some commentators have said this has the nuance of go as yourself. Go as yourself, whoever you are, female or male or all parts of the diversity, all the red, brown, yellow, black, and white that we sung about in Jesus Loves the Children of the World, or you had, I forget what your words were, black and shades from dark to light. Yes, thank you. Which I had never heard before. That was good. And so she begins with this feminine construction in the Hebrew. And it has this sense of go for yourself or go whoever you are in your true self, whatever you are, that is how you will go. And so it's a construction of inclusion. It's an improvisation. It's a paradox. Go as yourself, whoever you truly are, not only as expected. Go not only as expected. How many of us would do something truly new if we only went as expected? We wouldn't, because nobody expects it necessarily. Do we all expect each other to go around doing new things? Usually not. We become habituated to the way we are. And so this invitation from Debbie Friedman, the songwriter, starts out with this feminine construction. Lahi lach. Go as yourself, whoever you are, whoever God calls you to be. Go as yourself. Go as who you truly are. And then the song continues, and when we do this, we will be a blessing. When we do this, we will be a blessing. The scripture says, I will make you a blessing. I will make your name great. I will make you a blessing. The Quaker author Parker Palmer says that when we show up as our authentic selves, when we show up as who we truly are, then we are a blessing. On the other hand, when we just phone it in, I don't even know if this is the right symbol anymore. This is like the old phone, right? What do we do now? When we phone it in, I don't know. When we only are putting in an appearance and faking it and living half-heartedly, we do damage to ourselves and to others. That's why ministers need sabbaticals. That's why we all need renewal retreats. That's why we sometimes need to shift careers or do something new. Because we don't want to spend our life phoning it in. We don't want to say, looking back over a career, well, I kind of did it. What a drag. That would be awful. And so when we show up as our authentic selves, then we can hear the words of God from Genesis. Then I will make you a blessing. I will make you a blessing. When we show up with our God-given glow, that's what I like to look for, that God-given glow in people's eyes. Then as we sing in the hymn, Oh, how wonderful, oh, how marvelous. Methodists sing that hymn, don't you? You probably wrote it. All the hymns come from the Methodists. So, then we experience the final Hebrew phrase in Debbie Friedman's song, Lasimchat Chayim. And let's say that together. Lasimchat Chayim. Let's try that one more time. Lasimchat Chayim. Beautiful. And this phrase means rejoicing in life. Rejoicing in life. That is what we experience when we are able to show up wholeheartedly. So we're going to just practice the song just a bit, and then we're going to sing it later on during our offertory. But I want you to have a chance to just walk your way into it a little bit. So I'm going to go to the piano, and we're just going to try this a little bit phrase by phrase. Now, I am not actually a soloist. I'm a piano player. So, and there's also one part of this song that's too high, for me anyway. And actually, one of the commentators on the song says that this song is too high. It's generally considered too high for congregational singing, but it's good for us because it helps us to underline that parts of our journey may be difficult, but we make it through to the end of the song. So, okay, I'm just going to do phrase by phrase here. Lucky luck to a land that I will show you. Okay, let's do that together. Lucky luck to a land that I will show you. Lucky luck to a land that I will show you. Beautiful. You guys sound great. I'm impressed with your choir, by the way, in the summertime. That's an impressive choir. That's really cool. And then the second phrase is our lech lecha, which is the masculine form of the Hebrew. Lech lecha to a place you do not know. Let's do that again. Lech lecha to a place you do not know. Okay, here's the too high part. Lucky luck. See how high that is? Okay, let's do that again. Lucky luck. On your journey I will bless you, and you shall be a blessing, and you shall be a blessing. One more. You shall be a blessing, lucky luck. Okay, beautiful. And now we're just going to try the last bit with Lasim Chat Chayim, because that's a little tricky too. So let's go to that. Let's see. Let's just go to that phrase, I think. And this goes like this. Lasim Chat Chayim. Let's try that together. Lasim Chat Chayim. And repeat. Lasim Chat Chayim. And one more. Lasim Chat Chayim. Lucky luck. Okay, beautiful. Well, you really do sound great. As I always tell my congregation, which is much smaller than yours, because I have a new congregation, I wish you all could hear yourselves sing. And sometimes I have people just turn toward each other like this so you can at least hear half and halves. Because the sound of all the voices, it's like Garrison Keillor. It's like, hearing all of the audience just singing beautifully. And you really do sing well together. It's a good sign. All right, so we've practiced the song. So, again from the Gospel of John. The wind blows where it chooses, and you hear the sound of it, but you do not know where it comes from or where it goes. So it is with everyone who is born of the Spirit. So it is with everyone who is born of the Spirit. When you go as your true self, lachi lach, when you go as your true self, go as yourself, you are living in the Spirit. You are living in the true name that God has given you. And then, as we all know, Dr. Seuss says, oh, the places you'll go. All right? You all know that book? Quite a few of you do, I think. The places you'll go when you let yourself be in the Spirit instead of, for example, insecurity. When you let yourself live in the Spirit instead of insecurity. When you let yourself live in the Spirit instead of in control. When you let yourself live in the Spirit instead of with addictions and comfort and distractions. Now, I like comfort and distractions as much as the next person, for sure. Movies, books. And I also need some security and control in my life. They're all good. They're all good as long as they are not the guide and the goal. So I would submit to you, for example, that we need national security, but not as our main thing. What we mainly need as a nation is purpose, not security. We should be talking a lot more about purpose and kind of keep security in its place. It's like, lock the door, okay, but wow, don't spend all your money on the door lock. So, oh, the places you'll go in the Spirit when you're living out of your true name, not the lesser names that we sometimes get attached to, not the lesser names, those names like security and control. I have often remembered this passage incorrectly, and I wonder how you remember the passage from John. I have often thought that it is saying that the Spirit will go wherever it will. That the Spirit will go wherever it will, but that's actually not what Jesus is saying in the Gospel of John. It's not bad theology. The Spirit will go where it wills. And so it's not bad theology, but it's not what the passage is saying. Jesus is saying, consider the wind. This is how anyone born of the Spirit moves. This is the way in which anyone who is born of the Spirit moves. This is how we move when we are living in the Spirit, in our true name, instead of being distorted by lesser names. We start to move freely, like the wind. Consider the wind, Jesus is telling to Nicodemus, if you remember the context at all. Jesus is talking to Nicodemus, saying, can we be born again? Nicodemus is like, what? And that's how they talked back then. And Jesus says, look, Nicodemus, consider the wind. This is how it is with anyone who is born of the Spirit. In the Spirit of Christ, we do strange things that we would not otherwise have done. In the Spirit of Christ, we take risks. Well, here's what happened to me. I had been a pastor of a large Mennonite church in downtown Denver for 15 years. And during that time, we grew, and I pursued a doctorate in preaching, and I worked with many amazing associate pastors and college and seminary interns. I hired a lot of people. I was having a really good time being a senior pastor, It's a good job if you can get it. And then I went on a series of contemplative retreats. I went, of course, for enrichment because I didn't need anything, you understand. So I only went for enrichment. I didn't think I needed any big change. The problem is that when you go on a contemplative retreat and start listening to your heart and start listening to the voice of God in extended silence at that place where God's heart meets our heart, then things that should not have been forgotten may be remembered. Things that should not have been forgotten may show up with striking clarity. Well, the retreat work I did was based in the writings of that Quaker author, Parker Palmer, that I referred to earlier. And soon I was invited to go to a workshop with Parker himself. And his theme was, see how they love each other. This is a quote from the old church father Tertullian about how do we know where the church is. And he says, see how they love each other. That's the sign of the church. Beautiful quote. Beautiful quote. That was great. What a privilege to be with Parker Palmer. I was so excited. Then I went on sabbatical and I was going to do some writing. I was going to turn my dissertation into a book, which is what you do. Because nobody reads your dissertations. I haven't actually gone to the ILF library to see how many times people have checked out my dissertation, because that would be super depressing. I don't blame anybody either, but so I thought I would turn it into a book, a best-selling book and stuff like that. And to my dismay, and that's a whole other story, my writing collapsed. It did not work out. And I began to wonder about doing something new. And now, by an unexpected route, which is also too long to explain here, I became connected to Ted Haggard, the disgraced evangelical pastor. Do you all know about Ted Haggard? Have you heard of him? Okay, so yeah, more or less. If you're over 25, at least, maybe. So he was an evangelical leader. He was a consultant to George W. Bush when he was president. He was the president of National Association of Evangelicals. Most famously, he was the founder of New Life Congregation in Colorado Springs, a congregation of 15,000 members. And so he had some stuff going on. And then he got addicted to meth. And he crashed big time and was sent out of the state by his accountability group, went to Texas and went into rehab. Now, after some years, he had been invited back to Colorado Springs to start a new church by his accountability group. He had asked them, would this be appropriate? And they said, yeah, we feel like you've done some work, and you're invited to come back. And he has started a new congregation. It's called St. James. It's right at Garden of the Gods Road in I-25. Beautiful little congregation. It's a congregation of about 200 to 300. Marilyn and I have been there many times, and we love the feel of it, even though it's evangelical Pentecostal, which isn't our main mode. Well, maybe Pentecostal is. And maybe evangelical too. All right, so he was invited back, and now I found myself sitting across from the guy at Burger King in Castle Rock by paths that are so circuitous that only God could have devised them. And I didn't know what to say to him. He was famous for starting this big church, in Colorado Springs. So I asked him the obvious question, how do you make a church grow? His answer floored me and capitulated me into transformation. And all of this from a leader who previously I would have regarded only as a public problem and a spectacle. How do you make a church grow? I asked Ted Haggard. I expected notes on strategy, or at least I expected a note on theology, on ecclesiology, something like that. But he said simply this: the leaders have to love each other. Wait, what? The leaders have to love each other. Now, I had been a senior pastor for a lot of years, and I'd hired a lot of people. And the first question that when I hired anybody was never, do I love this person? It was always, are they good at Christian education or, outreach or whatever we were hiring them for. I had never asked myself the question, do I feel love for this person? Do I feel like I would be ready to enter into delighted, loving community with this person? I never asked that question. Ted Haggard said, I call it looking for the divine flow. I'm like, man, Ted, you're killing me here. I'm a Mennonite. I'm supposed to know about love and community. And I truly had never thought about that. I mean, I loved people, yes, of course. I officially loved them. We would bring casseroles, I love you in the Spirit of Christ. Well, Amish, our cousins, the Amish, my wife's ancestors, raise barns, and they do it for love. It's official. It's good. But I can just hear the voice of Jesus saying to Peter, yes, but do you love me? Do you love me? That's what I heard from Ted. That's the question. The leaders have to love each other. What? That's almost the same thing Parker Palmer just told me. He said, see how they love each other. And I realized, for me, almost in a Damascus Road flash, that while I was officially in favor of love, I wasn't deeply living out of God's joy and delighted love. I was in charge of love. I was the department of love, I was managing love. But I wasn't letting myself in for that free and glorious flow of love. And if you all want to read about it in your own history, read about Wesley and his experience of being strangely warmed. Very much resonant with that. Now, I only have to be hit by a 2x4 twice, as the saying goes. So Palmer, Haggard, both talking about love. One, a liberal Quaker, the other a conservative evangelical. Wow. Now I went back and told my wife in a new way that I loved her. And I came back from my sabbatical and I told my congregation, I love you. Worked up to it. It took me a couple of months. I had to figure out. But I told my congregation, I love you. It was so funny because then the next day I got an email from one of the women in our congregation. And she said, I had never heard a pastor say that to a congregation. And I thought about it, and I love you too. Which I like that she loved me, but I also like that she had to think about it. That was good. Good point. You don't want to rush in. Fools rush in, right? And I now felt compelled to something new. Go to the land that I will show you. First go, then I will show you where you are going. Boy, what an invitation is that. First go. Mark Nepo, writer, author, says, courage is not about feeling brave. Courage is finding the capacity to take one step into a new room. And then you look around inside that room and you think about what your next step might be. He said that's usually what courage looks like. Step by step, walking into that new thing, into that new room, onto a new path. Abram and Sarai, as they were called, are invited in the Spirit to leave the land of their ancestors and to go into a yet unknown land. Go from the country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you. Your country, your kindred, your father's house. Circles and layers of security. Go from all of these to the land that I will show you. They are so transformed by this that, as you know, they get new names. Now they are Sarah and Abraham. They're shocked out of their old names by the transformation of God. Now they are Sarah and Abraham. They take a great risk in the Spirit. And the Spirit says to them, I will make your name great. I will make you a blessing. Lachi lach. Go as yourself, and I will make your name great. I will make you a blessing. Well, here's the final bit of my transformation story. I felt compelled to do something new out of the love message that I had experienced from Parker Palmer and Ted Haggard. But I agonized. I loved my job. I loved the people. I liked my place. If I were honest, I loved my reputation. Truly. It's a nice place to be. And to go to the land that I will show you, I've only got like 15 years before I retire, Am I not already at the land you were going to show me? That would be kind of nice. And so I agonized for 3.5 years. I was so habituated and so addicted, even, I would say, to my security and my reputation, whatever my reputation was. So the Spirit had to give me one more super obvious message, and this one is very strange, but I'm going to tell you anyway. I'm starting to trust you. I had already had the love message, 2 highly different leaders, both saying the same thing, love, not plans, not security, but love. And now, after 3.5 years of agonizing, I had a dream. And here's how it went. I was standing on the porch of a house out on the southwestern scrub prairie. And a blue coyote came up to me and started forcefully brushing against my legs. And it became clear to me that the animal was not going to let me go back in the house. I don't know what that was about. Now I do. So I reached down and I scritched its head and I said, my Christ is your Christ. Now, I've been a pastor for a long time, but I never speak theologically in dreams. I never say stuff like, my Christ is your Christ, in a dream. When I did this, the coyote walked off into the prairie. And now I knew I could either go back into the house or I could follow that blue coyote out into the wilderness. I found out since then, by the way, and you may already know this, that blue coyotes in Jungian dream analysis are the trickster, and they're often there to shake things up. They're one of the trickster animals. Well, when the coyote walked off into the wilderness, I knew how this worked. There is no good Bible story ever where the person could choose the house or the wilderness, and they choose the house, right? That's not how you get in the Bible. You don't choose the house. You go into the wilderness. It was always into the wilderness for me. I just didn't understand it. I couldn't hear it for so long. But as I awoke from that dream, it was clear. I was following the blue coyote out into the wilderness. So I went from senior pastor in the house to church starter in the wilderness. I've now been helping to start a new congregation called Beloved Community Mennonite Church. We're currently renting in Englewood on the south side of the metro area. Our area is kind of the south side of the metro area because there's not another Mennonite church there. And life has become full of uncertainty. And we are small, and we have a very small budget. But we have great love. It's so beautiful. We've already helped to start a tiny home village. Some of you may have heard about it. It's called Beloved Community Village up in northwestern Denver, 38th and Walnut. Go drive by it. It's really amazing. 11 tiny homes. The uncertainty of the Spirit seems, it turns out, to also come with great joy. The uncertainty of the Spirit, it seems, also comes with great joy. A new kind of joy seems to come with this, go to the land that I will show you. Risk. And that's an amazing thing to experience. I would submit to you that there is nothing like it. Nothing at all. Lachilach, that paradoxical feminine Hebrew construct that Debbie Friedman sings about. Go, you paradoxical person, and you shall be a blessing. Go, and you will rejoice in life. Lasimchat chayim. So I would like to ask you this morning a few questions just for your consideration. What are your inklings and sense of your truest self? Do you have experiences like the one I related, where you had to walk out from your security and into something new at the invitation of the Spirit? This morning, are there longings for you that you may have forgotten but are now being remembered? If a blue coyote were to lead you into a wilderness, what might that look like for you? What would that be? What is the best and most wonderful thing you would like to do or be in the Spirit of Christ? What's the best or most wonderful thing you would like to do or be in the Spirit of Christ? What land would God show you? If you stepped out following God's invitation, go. The first invitation is just go. What land would God show you, do you think? Where would the winds of the Spirit blow your soul if you started moving like the wind, like the Gospel of John says? Where would that go? How would you be a blessing in the next hours of your life? How would you be a blessing in the next days of your life? In a moment, during our sharing of our offerings, we will sing the song that we've prepared together, Lachi Lach. And may we hold these questions in wonder and joy together. And may our hearts draw near in the Spirit of Christ. Amen. It's a joy to be with you.
We're reminded in Vern's message the hard work that living a faithful life can be. And we're reminded that because we are in this community, that hard work is not done alone. but side by side with one another.